All right, everybody. Welcome back in to Let's Talk Live. Wow. This completely changed the whole structure of what was supposed to happen tonight. Literally about 45 minutes before Nan got here, and I'm going to bring her in a minute here. My phone was literally blowing up all over the place. Ping, 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 phone calls. My mom was literally texting me going, Bryan Kohberger has taken a plea deal in the Idaho 4 murders. So this kind of changed the structure of what was going to happen tonight. But wow. A lot of people in the chat is just saying right away, like they're blown away. I knew all along that this guy was nailed down, and I had so many naysayers and people that came after me. And like, I know that there's been people that have continuously covered this, trial over the last 2 years. I had Karen Reed's to free. So I had to help here in the state of Massachusetts, but we're going to get into a lot of this tonight. And I do have Nan, and I'm going to bring her in a second. But what I want to do is I want to go back, and this is how I was actually going to start. This is how I was going to start. Nan's looking at me. This is how I was going to start our live show tonight. But I want to go back and read something to all of you that maybe the timing wasn't right. And I think in my early stages of just getting the channel up and running and just getting a lot of emails and people contacting me, I was very naive to this email, but I'm going to read it. But I think all things happen definitely for a reason. I'm a huge believer in fate. And the timing probably at that time wasn't right, but I want to read this email to you. So this is dated almost to the date, 6/7/24. And it says, LTL Media, I wanted to reach out to you to personally let you know that I am impressed and in awe of the thoughtful and candid approach you have taken to the Karen Reed coverage and commentary. I've been watching your channel for months now, long before the Reed trial, and have loved your honest, forthright, and common sense methodology applied to the cases you cover. I also love the humor. Quote, just driving around. And it's so funny that we're here talking about Bryan Kohberger, because that was a theme on my channel when Kohberger said he was just driving around stargazing, just driving around stargazing. And it says, I'm an attorney in New Jersey with civil and criminal law experience for over 20 years, and I own my own firm. I'm poised to delve into podcasting myself, and I've had a blend of personalities like Natalie Lawyer Chick and Andrea Burkhart. By the way, you should definitely try to get Andrea on your channel or play some of her live streams of the Karen Reed trial, as she's spot on and very aligned with your mindset. She was on the Young Jurts channel just last week as a great addition. Anyway, I just wanted to keep saying, keep up the good work. And if you're ever looking for a new guest on your channel to join a stream and discuss thoughts on some of the future crime stories, I'd love to do so. I don't always catch you live, but I almost religiously catch you on replay. You are the best. Also, great pick of you in the Reed team. Sincerely, Nan Gallagher. So I don't want to wait too much longer. Let's bring in my in-studio guest tonight. Nan Gallagher, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm well. I mean, like, right?
Yeah, I heard the news when I was driving here and went, uh-oh, what are we going to talk about? But there's so much to talk about with this. It's really unbelievable the way social media works. And I can't believe you read that email. I'm taken aback.
It's so crazy because it has the Kohberger tie into that. How weird is that? Is like, what do they call that? Serendipity?
Yes.
Serendipity.
Yeah.
It's like literally serendipity. And here we are 45 minutes before Nan gets here. My phone is blowing up.
So
like literally
mine.
My mother, I'm going to read the text from my mother. My mother texted me. This is my mom's text. God, Mom, I'm sorry. I haven't responded to you. I've been so busy. She said, Bryan Kohberger, let's see. Bryan Kohberger accepted a plea deal today. He's going to plea for all 4 murders and get 4 consecutive life terms.
Oh my God. I know. And a bunch of people were messaging me, and I saw things popping up on the screen, and I just say to myself, things happen for a reason, but I'm a little disappointed, to be honest with you, as someone who tries to advocate for justice and feels for families. That's one of the reasons I gravitate towards true crime. I just say to myself, I knew it was him. I know you knew it was him.
Yeah.
He wouldn't plea if it wasn't him. That's
Yeah.
my strong belief. But as we're here a year after I sent that email,
It's crazy.
and in going through all of the intricacies and nooks and crannies of this case, some deep pit of me says, I don't know if justice is being served here.
Yeah, it crushes. And I'm going to read the News Nation article, because News Nation actually is the one that broke this. Like, Brian Enton, I think, was on it. I think he was out in Idaho today. I got to confirm that, because this has happened so fast. I haven't really confirmed everything, but I do have an article for News Nation that broke. And I literally went to Google, and it was like, Bryan Kohberger was like, wow. But this is the thing that's crazy about this now, is that I know a lot of people have been doing, almost 2 years on their channels, as we did here in Karen Reed, and really went through a lot of this. And I think, I saw channels that put out very good information. Gray Hughes was great during this whole thing. I think there's another guy, Mob Crew or Mob Squad or something like that. He did really great. But then there was the very opposite channels to this too, where they got into a lot of crazy theories that I just couldn't align with. That, it was multiple students, and this was a cult ritual, and it was a drug thing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, guess what? You're all wrong. You're all wrong. I knew they had this guy nailed down the whole time, given the evidence. And the most damning piece of evidence was the knife sheath under Kaylee and Maddie with the DNA on it. You're done. I mean, there's no, and I know people talked about this for 2 years. Oh, it's touch DNA and it's just a little speck. But when you heard the math, what was it? 9 octillions. It would be like the distance between here and Pluto, that it would rule everybody else out except for Kohberger. I knew it was him. Yeah,
I feel the same way. And I also, in following this case, Bryan, I've looked at some of the other side of it, the people, the incels who would come forth and say, they're supporting him. And there was a whole mass following of people who were fans of his in jail, which I find, very intriguing as a social experiment. And I know there's kind of groupies for people who are accused of horrific crimes, including, what's his name? Mangione. Mangione. I can't remember the guy that shot
the United Healthcare CEO.
Correct. Yeah. Which, by the way, in the future, for future reference, that's a case that I'm keeping tabs on as well.
I've been looking at that too.
And that was something that was kind of close to me because of my healthcare legal experience. Just I remember when that crime happened, I was like, oh, I bet that's a doctor. A lot of people said in that case it was a patient. Maybe that was a patient that did that. I went to a doctor on that case, but the reason I bring it up is there's a whole fan base supporting that criminal defendant. And yes, we're all presumed innocent until proven guilty. But as far as Kohberger is concerned, I do feel a little vindication against all of those people who spoke out against, or spoke out in favor of him, because the evidence was really insurmountable.
Yeah, and I was getting shit too when I started, when I came out of Karen's case and I started I did that basic rundown.
Yeah.
It's just the comments that people were leaving, like you don't know what's going on, and you have no idea, and this is a drug thing because XYZ channel said this, and I'm like, and I hope that you follow the evidence like you did in Karen's case. And guess what? I did the whole time. And here we are. Not Haley checking in saying lots of content creators are going to be scrambling. I completely agree. And then Adam Teeper checking in saying, oh, they already are. They already are. So I love that.
Can I say one thing?
Of course.
First off, hello to both of you for your comments. But I wanted to just tell your audience that, and I know Bryan has said it a few times, Bryan knows this case, this Kohberger case. So that's one of the reasons why we're a little late starting this evening, because we really know this case together. And you especially, I've watched your over 500 streams on Kohberger.
Yeah.
You delved deeply. You came up with intricate pathways to pursue from an investigative standpoint, Bryan, that I was like, yes, I'm with you on these. You have great instincts.
Yeah.
And even though the angle of your channel naturally kind of diverted to Karen Reed, a very local and important issue here, the Kohberger case, not like you forgot about it.
No,
There
it comes
hasn't
back
been
pretty quick.
much, honestly, there
Yeah.
hasn't been much that's been so notable that had to be newsworthy until now. And yes, there's going to be scrambling that happens, but that's the beauty or the ugliness of true crime.
K9 says, nice work, Bryan. I appreciate that. Adam Tieper says, Bryan pays more attention to deep details and not relying on factual information. So there's so many others do deep dive investigations. I agree, Nan.
Yeah.
One thing that always kind of stuck out to, and I'll get to the News Nation article in a second. One thing that always stuck out to me that was kind of an aha moment, and the thing that's kind of sad is, with a plea deal, we're never going to really hear all the details. That's what sucks. I think eventually people will probably talk. And we're kind of hoping that in Karen's case too, that once, the pressure continues on the people that were inside 34 Fairview, hopefully somewhere down the line, maybe years down the line, someone cracks and talks about this. But, the sad thing about it is we're never going to really hear all the details. One thing that always stuck out to me, and you can go back and watch this on my channel, was I was watching a interview with Christy and Steve Gonsalves, and they talked about, and it had been maybe a year after the incident happened. And he said, now we're finally just starting to get some of Kaylee's possessions back from the police department, the Idaho Police Department. And they kept things like, I think there was some of her personal items, probably, maybe there might have been some fingerprints or suspect fingerprints on there. And they said something about keeping her Bluetooth speaker. And I went, wait a minute, why would they do that? And naturally I said, well, I wonder if Kohberger was stalking them and was in and around that area.
Right.
Could he have come close enough to the house where he pinged off her Bluetooth? And this is what I want to talk about, everybody. What do we always have on? We always have our Bluetooth and Wi-Fi buttons turned on. So, for instance, you go to a hotel, you're going to use their Wi-Fi, you're going to connect to their Wi-Fi, and you leave, and you go back 3 years later, maybe to stay again. Guess what your phone's going to naturally try to do?
Yeah.
Handshake with that Wi-Fi again. So what I mean by handshake is it's reaching out, just for the people that don't know. I have my phone, I have my Bluetooth on. In this room right now, I probably have 15 devices that are on that could potentially connect to my phone.
Right.
So my phone right now is sending out a low wave AM radio signal to these items and saying, do you want to connect? Do you want to be friends? Do you want to connect? And it's basically pinging that. It's touching that. So I wonder, and again, I'm not a Bluetooth expert, but I did have someone that came on my channel that worked for like Verizon for 9 years. And they said it would keep a record of a phone or an item that would try to handshake with that. And I went, aha. Here's even the crazier thing about it. There was some video that surfaced of some noise complaint calls that happened. And I remember Kaylee coming out and speaking to one of the Idaho officers. And this is just a couple of months. It was August. And they were killed in November. There was an August body cam video that was released. When the cop goes up and goes to knock on the slider, when you look inside that slider, they had a big Bluetooth speaker there. And I said, I wonder, and again, I'm only guessing, could that have been Kaylee's Bluetooth speaker, or was there something up in her room where maybe Kohberger could have gotten in this house at some point, walked through those rooms and knew, or just even, came close enough to that house? Because I think you got to be about 150 to 130 feet in and around the area to connect to a Bluetooth device. I think that he fucked up and had his Bluetooth on and touched some elements of speakers or Wi-Fi in that house. I mean, there's so much cast information that they would have nailed this guy on. And I kept referring back to people like, go watch the Alec Murdaugh stream when they had the FBI agent that came up and nailed via cast information Alec Murdaugh within inches of his family that night when he killed them. So I always tell people refer back to the stream, but I know I'm going on a tangent here.
It's okay.
But it's like, I think that they had a lot of this kind of stuff on this guy.
And if I may comment on that, I've always agreed with you on that as far as that Bluetooth speaker is concerned, Bryan, but also when we've gotten as far as we've gotten in this case with a trial looming, and now it seems that that's all moot. But on this point, people have been saying, oh, it's the knife sheath, it's the touch DNA. People have been saying there's Amazon evidence that he tried or did purchase an additional knife sheath to kind of cover up the fact that he lost the knife sheath. That's all fine and good. I've always been of the opinion, I don't want to say always, I'm now of the opinion, because this is breaking news about the plea. I am now of the opinion that there is something, and had to have been something, that was so pivotal, so salacious, so a jury was going to sink their teeth into it. And it may very well have been the handshaking of a Bluetooth speaker. And we could speculate about a bunch of different pieces of evidence that Ann Taylor, who is his state assigned attorney, and she put up a good fight. But she probably knew that there's a piece of evidence that was so insurmountable that went far above and beyond the trace DNA on the knife sheath. So maybe we'll never know. But criminals who take pleas and criminals who are convicted, they talk, especially now in the day and age of book deals and social media and facing, people are trying. I mean, there are state statutes that say you can't profit off of your crimes. Sure. But there's more of a robust avenue for people who want to devour this kind of information. And I have a feeling Bryan Kohberger eventually will want to speak, and I will want to hear what he has to say. And as far as the family is concerned, I'm sure families, but we're talking about the Gonsalveses,
because they've been the most vocal.
I'm sure there's a level of frustration and defeatism. Now they've not only lost their daughter, and obviously Maddie Mogan was such a close personal friend of their daughter and their family, but they may be feeling like they've lost a sense of justice at this point, because a plea doesn't bring their daughter back, and a plea doesn't bring answers.
Yeah. Brenda in the chat says, do you think we'll find anything now, like you spoke about the Bluetooth speaker? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what is there any. Will they divulge all this evidence now to the families, or how does this happen? It just gets sealed off.
It might. So some of the evidence may get divulged to the families, Brian. It really kind of depends on a number of factors, one of which is what ultimately that kind of gag order allows the state to reveal to the families. I never understood that gag order in this case, but also what is the evidence? What did they have? What does the family have a right to hear? I think it's going to be filtered in some fashion. I think perhaps meaning the Gonsalves' attorney, Shannon Gray, I believe is his name.
Shannon Gray.
Not to be confused with Shannon Burgess, but from the Reed case. But I think Shannon Gray can pursue avenues. I know I would, if I was advocating for the family, to try to get those answers and try to uncover what specifically was the evidence, because the Gonsalveses, they were really doing a lot of their own research and investigation in this case, which honestly, I don't know. As much as I know, if this were my child, I would want to do everything to find the answers and to bring a killer to justice. But they did their own investigation along the way, and some of it was so pivotal in the first few hours following the reporting of the murders. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
Tsunami says FOIA requests are going to be off the hook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know I'll be putting a bunch of them in, and, I'm going to follow this. I want to see what happens if he comes out, he speaks, he makes a sentence, any type of note to the family, whatever. I mean, something eventually is going to come out. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can totally see Steve Gonsalves showing up in prison and saying, I got questions, and you're going to answer them. I could see that happening. He's got a fire in his belly, and this isn't going to stop him. It's just not.
So let's read from News Nation here. It says, Bryan Kohberger accepts plea deal in Idaho College murders. Sources confirm the prosecution had proposed dropping the death penalty. A court hearing for a charge plea will be on Wednesday, and I'm going to cover that if it is live.
Yeah.
I'll cover that here on the channel because I actually have Wednesday off, so I'll be able to cover that. It says Kohberger faces charges of the 2022 deaths of 4 college students. So it says this broke at 5:34 Central Time. News Nation has learned a plea deal has been offered to Bryan Kohberger, the man charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students in November of 2022, and he has accepted. Sources confirm the prosecution has proposed dropping the death penalty in exchange for Kohberger pleading guilty to committing the murders and the burglary charge. News Nation has learned Kohberger must also agree to spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole and must waive his right to an appeal. A court hearing for a change of plea will be on Wednesday. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Well, thank you for reading that because that's what I kind of started to read, which I shouldn't have while I was driving here. I'm like, what is this saying? I wanted to be so prepared for you and your audience. I would simply add to that as far as the plea is concerned, the most important piece of it is the waiver of the right to appeal. Like they have to make sure, the state has to make sure that he understands you're going to plead to this. We'll take the death penalty off the table. You're going to be convicted of these 4 murders. And you can't then go back and say you had ineffective assistance of counsel or one of the other few grounds for a reversal of a conviction. Although I think everyone who follows this case would agree, he has absolutely not had any ineffective assistance of counsel, despite my personal views of how Ms. Taylor has attempted to defend this case quite zealously. I mean, she's done a lot to try to defend him and put up a good fight. She has been exceptional and definitely a very effective counselor on his behalf. On the same token, though, Brian, it's worth mentioning, we're here. The trial is a month plus away. And if I were living in Idaho, I would feel like this has been a bit of a waste of taxpayer dollars. I'm not ever afraid to say that. I mean, Ms. Taylor would have known. She would have known sooner. I'm not casting any fault upon her. But, she's looked the devil in the eyes, as did Dylan Mortensen that early morning hours of, what was it, November 13th, 2022? Yes. Can't believe it's been that long.
So long.
She's looked the devil in the eyes. And at this point, to plea at this hour, it's his right to do it. But I'm a little annoyed at the fight that she's put up. I don't know if I could have.
So the last motion that's on the docket right now was today. And it says order sealing second notice of filing defendant's addition objections to the juror questionnaire. So they were loading up for trial.
Yeah. I mean, but think about it, Brian. I don't know. It's probably every bit of almost a year ago in this case. You had the whole issue arise on Kohberger of the change of venue, the failure, or at least the defense's feeling like they were never going to get a fair trial in whatever county Moscow, Idaho is in. And they had the jury. Lata, thank you.
And then they moved it to Boise.
Yeah, which is Ada County.
Yeah, Ada County, larger courtroom. And they felt that, obviously, given the situation in the area, that it was, such a small county, they wanted to get a better jury pool that people that might have not have heard about this case. So.
Right. And I understand that. But if you remember at the time, the surveys that went out to the Lata County population on this case, they were so problematic to me. They were asking questions that presumed facts, some facts that were presumed in the surveys, mentioned facts that were completely inaccurate. These surveys that went out to, presumably a very, what's the right word? I guess I would simply say a demographic in Lata County. And those questions were really, really controversial, almost tainting the own well.
Yeah.
This
There's
case
a lot of controversy about that.
Yeah, you've had like a lot of ups and downs with how this case has proceeded. Plus, now, almost 3 years later, the public defender, Ann Taylor, and there was at least one assigned death penalty attorney. I think there are 2, but there's at least one that I'm aware of. I don't remember her name. these are attorneys who have every step of the way said, we need more time. The data is so voluminous. We've got all of this to go through. And finally, I think, honestly, it's taken the inclusion of Judge Hippler into the equation to kind of move the needle here. I'm sure Hippler, who is no BS, has juxtaposed. I know, I love him
Can
too.
you just? He's like, he just sits there and he's like, I can't believe I'm hearing this shit.
Well, and you're doing, he's sitting there going,
he's
what?
like, what the fuck?
But he started out on his first hearing saying, I'd say I was happy to be here, but I'm not, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I guess that could be taken different ways. But he's like a no BS kind of judge. And Judge, I don't want to dump on him, but Judge in Latah County, Judge kind of, he took his sweet time with this and was willing to entertain arguments. And, hey, theoretically, I'm willing to listen to this and maybe I'll issue a decision in several weeks later. Hippler's not like that. And on the legal planet I live on, in my experience, most judges are Hipplers, not judges. So this is probably a lot in part to Judge Hippler's influence as well. Plus, once they had the recent decision to include and allow this jury to consider the DNA, so they weren't going to bar the DNA from the knife chief, that changed everything because, Ann Taylor tried her best, but it was coming in. And that's, even though it is circumstantial, believe it or not, it is something that a jury would say DNA alone could be the key, because we have juries now who are very big into the CSI effect, and they say, show me the DNA, show me the blood, show me all of the pathways to point the guilty gun at this target, which is the defendant. But it's really all of the other things as well that we've talked about over the last couple of years, or I've heard you talk about. So I think your coverage has been great, and I look forward to seeing where it goes.
I knew it was this guy all along. I knew it was this guy all along. I knew. Let's see. I hate these new YouTube.
What happened?
Why do you have to try to fix things that aren't broken? Just give people their screen names back. Like, it's all these fucking @ now. I hate it. So like, what they're doing is they're making the new chat names the name that you signed up your account with on your channel. It's annoying.
Yes.
Like, just give everybody their damn chat names back. Anyway, Real T, thanks for becoming a new member. I appreciate that. Cindy has been here a long time. Look at this, 26-month member. Says, love this channel. You're doing great, Brian. She's been here since my Idaho days. We have Papa Roger checking in. Papa Roger was the speculation of the what was it? What the hell is that site? Reddit. Apparently, they knew the details, and it was suspected to be Kohberger.
Wait, is that the legit
it could
Papa
be
Roger?
It could be Bryan Kohberger on his iPad. I don't know. But $2 super chat says Thompson has never tried a death penalty case in his career. Very interesting. And then Tsunami, channel member and moderator, and also a good friend. Ryan, you're the best. He says plea deals come with 4 consecutive life sentences. You'll be doing time in the afterlife.
Wow.
So let's see this. I guess the Gonzalez family makes a statement. They said in a statement on social media, the family of one of the victims, Kaylee Gonzalez, said, "It's true. We are beyond furious with the state of Idaho. They have failed us. Please give us some time. This was very unexpected. We appreciate all your love and support. #heartbroken. #Kaylee Jade forever." Here's the thing that I don't like about this, and I've been very frustrated along this process, is that the families haven't known anything. And you've heard Steve and Christy talk about this multiple times, that the prosecution has not been communicating with them. I don't know what the style is in Idaho, but I'll tell you, if that was my daughter and there's shit going on behind the scenes and they're not letting me know, I'd be pretty bullshit. They couldn't, and Grant, again, I don't know the circumstances of what went on with this, but it would be really nice. And I'm going to even be pissed off too if I find out the prosecution didn't prepare them for something like this. Like, hey, this possibly could be on the table in the next 24 hours, or at least when they were making the deal, pick the fucking phone up and start calling some of these families and saying, please prepare yourself, because there's going to be a ton of press that comes your way,
Yeah.
and people are going to want to talk to you. How do you feel about this, Nan?
I agree with you, but I just want to play devil's advocate
Sure.
for one moment. I completely agree. The prosecution kept them in the dark, and why, I have no idea. I would be very vested in wanting to know the details and would probably get a little amped up trying to get those details from Thompson, etc. However, there are, and I know you know this, there are 4 victims. It's a very interesting crime. Okay, 4 victims, 4 families. That's 4 sets of parents and siblings. And the prosecution won't settle out with a plea agreement with just without notifying the families. But I have a feeling that the prosecution went to the families and said, this is what we're going to present. And my observation of 3 of the other families, those for Xana, Ethan, and Madison, that they were more of a passive, neutral, I don't mean anything pejorative when I say that, but more of a passive, neutral voice in this process. They did not exhibit to me as an onlooker a feistiness that you saw from Christy and Steve.
Yeah, they fought. And they fought hard.
And I by no means
and I
want
love
to.
it.
I do too, because that would have been me.
Listen, if that's my daughter, and they got a lot, Nan, they got a lot of shit from people from, they just wanted to be in the spotlight. Oh, they just wanted to be out there. You're goddamn right, because I'm going to tell you, if it happened to my daughter or it was my son, I'd be doing the same thing.
Right.
And this is why people came at me about Kohberger, okay? You are now accused of 4 brutal murders. I mean, the way that we're finding out that, I mean, literally, and I don't want to sound horrible in this, like literally the bloodletting of these children, right? Because they are kids, okay? Literally the bloodletting of these children. And I'm sorry, if I'm fucking innocent, and who did we hear this with in a trial that we just covered?
I don't know.
That stood on the courtroom steps every time that she had the press there to scream out loud and said, I did not do this,
right?
A la Karen Reed. I'm sorry. If I'm accused of 4 murders and I know that I didn't fucking do it, I'd be on those courtroom steps every day, walking back and forth, screaming at the top of my lungs, screaming while I'm incarcerated in a county jail, going, I did not do this.
I agree.
He didn't do it once. He fucking lied about I was driving around that night stargazing.
Took his
time.
I
don't buy it for a second.
Took his time, by the way, to enter that.
And was a coward. And was a coward. And didn't stand up and had his fucking attorney put it in for him because he didn't want to speak.
Agreed. And in this case, he did not plead. Right. So he did not plead, not originally, not guilty.
Right.
His attorney entered a plea of no content, no something, no answer. I forget what it's called in Idaho, but he himself never. Sure. Somebody in the chat, tell Nan.
It's been a little while.
Nan's under the weather this evening. Somebody put in the chat and tell me what Ann Taylor entered on his behalf, which was, the law permits that in Idaho. But if I were Bryan Kohberger and I didn't do it.
Plea. It was a no plea.
Thank you. Yeah. No plea. Yeah. I would have stood up and said, I did not do this. And it reminds me of your recent show with Jason Broyles, where you were looking at local defendant Brian Walsh, who was listening to the prosecutor go through some of the charges against him. And he just stared at her with this cold, angry, not
shark
even angry,
eyes.
Shark eyes.
It was like Donald's eyes.
Yes. Yes.
Jaws.
Jaws is my favorite movie. And it's like the 50-year anniversary, which is kind of local to where we are right now. But those shark's eyes, he didn't,
excuse me.
That also tells someone like me, he probably did it as well.
Yeah.
If I didn't commit a crime, I'd be singing from the hilltops. And in circling back to what I was saying, I think the prosecution had to find and marry some type of compromise on what they were going to offer to Kohberger from all of the families. Yeah. So even though the Gonsalveses seemed to be a little hot right now, and they should be, as far as I'm concerned. This may have been something that was desired by the 3 other victims' families. I think in the coming weeks, we'll come to see if that's true.
Yeah. Let's get a couple chats in here. Cindy, thank you so much. Member for 22 months. She's been here through the Idaho case when I started on the channel. So good evening, Nan and Bryan. Happy to make this live. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that. And there was no collision. I love this. $5. How long until Kohberger's accomplices get arrested? Yes, that has been a lot of speculation, but I'm going to tell you, and this is my opinion. Okay. I think given the amount of time now and all the speculation and deep diving, let's keep in mind here, the FBI has been on this case as well.
Yeah.
I think they would have uncovered a stone right now, or a few, if there were other people involved in this. And I truly still believe he was the sole perpetrator of this crime. It was the perfect scenario, given his background, given all the information that did come out. Some stuff got leaked. It just led me to believe, following this evidence, that it was this guy. I did an experiment. I don't know if you remember watching this, because the given time was like between 9 and 12 minutes to commit this crime.
Right.
I want people to understand, okay? 1, I did order a K-bar knife off of Amazon to prove a point. 1, can you get one? Yes. 2, I wanted to see what it was like to have a K-bar knife in my possession and see what type of, it's literally a killing machine. And these are made for Marines. A K-bar knife is an insane killing machine weapon. I mean, it's crazy how sharp that thing is. It's almost scary. And it was weird. Like, I had it in my house and I was gonna like keep it, and I started getting like all these weird dreams and vibes. I'm like, gotta get rid of the fucking thing. I returned it. I returned it. But and back to my bigger point is, I did an experiment where I went through a car wash, because I have never timed a car wash before. And I think it ended up landing on like 8 or 9 minutes. But after sitting there that whole time and realizing what 9 to 12 minutes would be, like if we stood silent, that's a long fucking time. And a lot of people have to like understand is that house, given the odd shape that it was, it really wasn't big inside. So to go and navigate really quickly and get down through those rooms and use essentially a Marine's killing tool, I mean, it just takes 1, 2 plunges. This guy had a lot of rage. This guy had a lot of angst. This guy had a lot of anger. Look at, what is it? Fatal Attraction.
Yep.
Okay. When
Glenn
Close like flips out on that. That is the type of rage that this guy had. And you put someone in that particular situation, and I've heard of other crimes where people just get stabbed multiple times.
Oh, yeah.
That was the type of rage, the type of demon that was inside this guy. And I truly believe that he was the sole perpetrator of this and had that capability in him to do that. We found out that he was running and losing more weight. We saw a photo that supposedly was taken hours after the murder. He's skinny. He's
unbelievable. By
crazy.
the way.
And I truly believe that, obviously he was, because he pleaded. I mean, he pleaded.
Yeah. Obviously I'm not a profiler, but I look at this crime and I agree. That house struck me as being like modular, almost like disassociated, disjointed.
It was built in different times and sections.
Right. And there's like
it was odd.
three levels.
Yeah.
And I have always been of the opinion that he went there for a purpose. I don't think he went there to kill 4 people.
Yeah.
I think he went there probably to kill one person.
And there was collateral damage.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great word, or great words, collateral damage. So it's like, well, okay, my original plan is to do this. I've thought about it. I'm a criminal justice student. I'm trying to look into this. This is what I want to try to see is, what is it like? How do you choose your victims? How do you get from point A to point B and execute the perfect crime? I think personally he aimed too high. If this was, I mean, I hate even saying this, but if this is something that he wanted to achieve, he aimed very high. I never thought there was another suspect. I thought when he was arrested in Pennsylvania, which I'm sure we're going to talk about the Pennsylvania piece to this, but when he was arrested in Pennsylvania, and it was reported that one of the first things out of his mouth was, "Did you arrest anyone else?" And I was like, "What?" And at the time, I was like, "Oh, maybe there were other people." But I now come since to believe that
throw off the investigation.
That's right. See, look,
he
Bryan.
was ready.
After a year of me reaching out to you, we now finish each other's sentences. I love it. I love it. But it's true. I think he was interested in the sociology of the crimes.
Yeah.
And they're horrible crimes. And I don't think there's ever going to be fully justice. I wanted to hear all of the evidence against him, and I'm anxiously going to await if it is all rolled out or not.
Yeah. Debbie said PhD level. Yeah, he had that PhD level intelligence. Because I don't think he had any other path in his life. I mean, we started to learn, he was very rejected. He was very odd. There was some speculation that he had some issue with visual snow.
Yeah.
To me, that seemed a lot of psychological things going on, possibly maybe some schizophrenia.
Yes.
You're hearing and seeing things. So
I've heard people say he might be on the spectrum as well.
Right.
He also, it was reported that he had mentioned feeling like, or describing himself in writings as like a sack of meat.
Yeah, and
previously.
disassociated with people. That's like sociopath tendencies.
Yes, and I have followed over the last two or 3 years Gary Brucato, who is a psychologist out of the New York area who has really tried to profile him a bit. Gary Brucato has great insight on what he feels was really the kind of profile of Bryan Kohberger. But while he won't go and diagnose Bryan Kohberger, he has always kind of landed on all of the pieces, just as you referenced.
Maybe we can try to get him on a program with us.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. I would strongly recommend that. And he knows just his limits on what opinions to offer and what not. And he has a lot of great insight as to how criminals and criminality are formed. And that's kind of what makes me interested in true crime, not the crimes themselves, but how does one get here? How do you get to that point?
Yeah.
So
yeah. A couple more chats. Let's get these out of the way. $10 from SK27. I'm hoping now you can spend more time on Enrique, Sandra Birchmore, and try to get second look at Just on Root's case.
Yes.
Here's the great thing about it. On Sundays, right now, I'm continuing my Sunday show. I just did one, and we actually did some updates on Sandra Birchmore and Enrique. And I just wrote a new article on Enrique. Bless you.
Excuse me.
And I'm speaking out more about his case because I've said to everybody, I know everything on that case. I know everything. I've had some really close sources that have come forward and some really validated information. I just got to be very careful in the way that I say it. But I have had multiple sources that have reached out, confirmed, and I know everything. I just have to be careful because they're in grand jury proceedings right now, and I want that course to take its course. I want that to be free and clear, and let that take its course. But anyway, on Sundays, I'm now doing a local show called the Sunday 617. Right now, we do it at 10:30 a.m. on Sundays. The time may change. I'm experimenting with times, but last Sunday, I had Jason Broyles, not Haley, on with me. We had a fantastic show, and we just break it into segments. We did a segment with the buffer zone. We had Jason Grant come up and talk about his lawsuit, which was phenomenal. And we went into Enrique. At the end, we talked about Sandra Birchmore, and there was a lot of topics that we hit. So it's just little 20-minute to half-hour segments, how we broke it up. We talked Brian Walsh. And it turned out to be a great show. So that Sunday show is how we're going to pretty much do this. And then if anything else local that comes up that's suspicious or crime or corruption, maybe a political issue, we're going to start talking about that here in the state of Massachusetts. So I appreciate that. Let's see. Calico 26, $2 says he reminds me of Richard Speck. Richard Speck. I don't know who that is, but that's something that I definitely want to look into. The Goodmans, 9-month membership. Thank you. Says, love you and Nan. We look forward to your futures. Thank you so much. The Goodmans are great people. And gifted one membership. I appreciate that. And then Olaf, the Russian metalhead, says, I bet Catherine Ramsland will be writing a book soon. So
Yes.
yeah, I would say that. And also Howard Bloom
Yes.
out in Idaho has been doing a lot of writing on this case ever since it happened. And I know his writing kind of mixes fact with fiction, and that's kind of how he writes, but
It's
he
ethereal. Yeah.
must be off the chain today.
Yeah.
And I'd love to go back and now go back and reread some of his writings
Yes.
and see if he was spot on.
Yeah, I forget the name of his book. It has like such a beautiful literary title.
Yeah.
But Howard Bloom has had the unique opportunity, Brian, of getting some insights before gag orders were
Right.
put into place, before law enforcement couldn't discuss or reveal certain particularities about the evidence. So his writings were very insightful. And Catherine Ramsland, she collaborates with Gary Brucato. They
Okay.
have
We gotta get one of them on the channel.
it's definitely,
We'll work on it.
I'm happy to help get
Yeah.
reach out to them if you need me to. They are very insightful. They have their own studies on serial killers.
Yeah.
Like I look a lot into that. I
Well,
know
Kohberger studied under Ramsland, right?
he did.
Yeah, that's odd.
He did.
She must be out of her mind today.
Yes, and she had I want to say, was it BTK? She
Yeah,
might also have BTK.
She corresponded with him.
Yeah, like she's an interesting character in and of herself. But as far as Kohberger is concerned, it's really to me, and I don't mean to romanticize this crime, but it's really what would drive someone to do this. These poor parents and families who just, every parent wants their child to go off to college and enjoy the experience and learn the freedoms and to learn their independence and make choices for themselves. Nobody would have ever thought this could have been a predictable outcome.
Yeah.
You predict a carjacking, you think your kid might get mugged, you predict things like that could go wrong. But this is, to use the term bloodletting is really apropos and very morbid at the same time. But honestly, the plea is just never going to feel satisfactory to me, and I know not to at least some of the families. And I await an opportunity to hear more about this crime and these crimes and what happened, and maybe those who were set to be witnesses in the case.
Will now speak. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Dylan and Bethany.
Maybe they'll tell more.
Correct.
Yeah, it's and listen, I understand the Gonzalez's frustration. I understand they're coming out and saying this because to your point, what you made a little while ago was that book deals, movies, and I know you can't profit off this stuff, but there's going to be every publisher and reporter clamming for this story,
right?
And you probably don't want it to come out that way. If your child was killed, in this type of manner, you would want it to come out into a court setting, and the legal way. It's crazy. This is so unexpected to me. I thought he was going to ride this thing out.
But thinking about it, he is a criminal defendant. Let's assume he takes this plea as is being reported, which is breaking news. He will then no longer be a criminal defendant. He may want to talk, and he can't come out and say I didn't do it, because he will have to place on the record a factual predicate for these crimes. You can't just say, "Uncle, I give up. I plead guilty." No, a factual predicate will have to be laid. Usually it's done by the prosecutor. In some jurisdictions, it's done by the defendant's own counsel, and they will say, you hereby admit that you were in the vicinity of 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho on the night of November 13th, 2022. You hereby admit blah, blah, blah. And therefore, you did commit these crimes. They're much more particular than that. But perhaps he wants to talk. I understand why he's not now, but his status will change. And maybe he will adore, which is really gruesome to me, the adulation that comes his way by telling his story and getting people angling for him. Maybe Howard Bloom is going to knock on his cell door and say, I have a story to tell and I want to hear I want to tell your story. We'll have to see how it's unfolded.
Barbara, I just want to thank you for the $25 on Venmo. Shannon Gray, the attorney for the Gonzalez, has now made a statement, and I'm going to read that. CNN reports that the 30-year-old accused of fatally stabbing 4 University Idaho students in their apartment in 2022, has agreed to a plea deal to avoid the death penalty in a quadruple murder case. The plea deal consists of pleading guilty to 4 counts of murder in exchange for the government not pushing the death penalty. A person familiar with the deal confirmed to CNN. Shannon Gray, attorney of the family of the victims of Kaylee Gonzalez, also confirmed the deal to CNN. A hearing is scheduled for Wednesday. Kohberger was slated to go to trial in August, and prosecutors indicated there would be the pursuit of the death penalty. Quote, the issue is they are trying to cram a plea for July 2nd, only giving families a day to get out of Boise, Gray said. Gonzalez family described the announcement as, quote, very unexpected in a post on Facebook. They said they were, quote, furious at the state of Idaho. Quote, they have failed us. Please give us some time, reads the post. It says the deal brings a possible end to a years-long legal proceedings against Kohberger, which has been seen this trial date delayed multiple times due to the disputes in evidence in the witnesses as a change of venue in Latah County to the state's capital of Boise. Quote, we cannot fathom the toll that this case has taken on your family, read the letter signed by the Moscow prosecutor, attorney Bill Thompson, according to the Idaho Statesman, which is a local paper there, which is said to have viewed the letter. This resolution is our sincere attempt to seek justice for your family. This agree ensures that the defendant will be convicted and will spend the rest of his life in prison and will not be able to put you in any other families through the uncertainty of the decades of post-conviction appeals. Wow.
Interesting. I have chills hearing this because
I think they're a death penalty state too. And Steve was like, we want, like, he's going down. Like, and I got to stand with Steve in this. I mean, my heart hurts for them.
Yes, it's a death penalty state out in Idaho, and they recently passed legislation that permits a criminally convicted defendant to face a firing squad if the drugs necessary to end life are unavailable. With this said, I can tell you all that as there's a trial that was set to start in August, and I apologize to your audience, I'm a little under the weather, so
okay.
If you can't hear me, just let me know. But as we're at a point where, with a trial starting in August, I'll tell you as an attorney, all attorneys facing trials look at, the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks of your life and say, am I ready for that? And I'm sure, I'm not sure, but I strongly suspect that Bill Thompson and his co-counsel for the prosecution looked ahead and said, do we really want to try this extremely voluminous discovery-based case? I mean, this case was set to take like 3 months, I think.
Scheduled for 3 months.
3 months, and I think that was ambitious because I think it was probably going to take close to 4. Plus, starting in August, it then would carry on well into the fall holiday season. Like, this was going to be a huge burden to them. They are not located in Ada County. They would be living out of hotels. The families of the victims would be traveling from afar. There's a lot of just logistical concerns that would be triggered by this and natural inconveniences to prosecute this case. So I am speculating, but I think I'm right, that the prosecution in and of itself didn't want to try this case. So I'm interested to hear more from the Gonsalveses and Shannon Gray, their attorney, on this. Keep an eye on that, everyone, because I think this was more than just seeking justice. And yes, I can't speak with empathy, but the families are probably saying, we didn't just want a conviction. We wanted to see the rolling out of the evidence against this guy because he stole the light of our lives. He stole their future from us, and their children our future grandchildren. And we want to see him in prison, but we want to see the story, and we want to be able to watch it unfold, see his facial reactions or lack thereof. So I'm interested to see how this plays out in the future. I really am.
Adam Teeper says there's no justice if the family is not involved. I'm going to go get you a Kleenex. I'll be right back.
Thank you so much. Hey, thank you, audience. I'm under the weather, and I didn't think I was going to need a Kleenex here, but while Bryan is being chivalrous and getting me a Kleenex, so I don't gross out your entire audience, I will tell you also that when we think about the families that are, the families of the victims, my observation of Ethan's family, for example, is they've been very quiet and subdued. They've been in a position where they've almost like reached a level of acceptance that this is what we've lost our son, who was one of, I think, triplets. We've lost our son, and we just want this to kind of quietly move through its natural process. In addition to that, Xana Kernodle's family, from what I've observed, has kind of been very similar. The only two families who I have really observed have been a little bit more opinionated are the Gonsalveses, and I have seen Madison Mogen's father be a little bit outspoken, but certainly more subdued than the Gonsalveses on this issue. And as we thank you so much, Bryan, I appreciate it. Ladies out there, chivalry is not dead. Yes, and I don't wish my little cold. Yeah,
I saw you dripping a little bit.
Thank you so much. I apologize. Yeah, I was telling some people I was under the weather, and they were like, "Are you really? Are you making an excuse not to see me?" No, I'm actually under the weather. I did give Bryan the out though. I said I could appear virtually from my hotel room, but he said, no, come to the studio. And I have to tell you, it's a fantastic studio, and there's nothing like having a real conversation.
Yeah,
with
when we're
your
looking
friend.
at each other.
Yes.
Let's do a couple, rest there for a second. Let's do a couple of super chats here. Nancy, thank you for the 20. She said, AJ and Aiden Saturday night at 9. Congratulations for Aiden on getting this interview. Absolutely. And thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Melissa, 10-month member, says, Nan, you look stunning, and B, you're so handsome as always. Thank you so much, Melissa. I appreciate that. Dina Jam, that's been here, oh God, for a long time, channel moderator and member, says, hi, Nan and Bryan. I'm shocked at the plea. Yeah, it was very, very shocking. It was very, very shocking. Someone just asked me, Bryan, will you show the Wednesday court of Bryan Kohberger? Absolutely. I mean, if I'm off on Wednesday, if there's going to be a televised hearing, of course, I'm gonna do that. And the world needs to see it. I just want to do this really quick and just shift gears for a second, because someone was asking me about Enrique Delgado Garcia.
Yeah. And
I just recently wrote an article here, and if anybody wants to keep up on the information in his case, I'll drop the link here in the chat. And whoops, not that one.
Very interested in his case.
You can click and save that. And I've been doing periodical updates, but I want to read a paragraph from that article, because it's very important. So let's see. We talk about David Meyer's contract was said to expire today. So hopefully that's re-upped, because I think David still has a lot of work to do, especially now going into the grand jury testimony. But I put this out there. I said, that said, after doing some digging and hearing from sources, I can confirm what was initially reported. This was a training exercise gone wrong. Plain and simple. It was not a gang beating or a hazing incident. And I want to make that very clear. Enrique suffered a head injury during a sparring match with a fellow recruit. That blow triggered a medical event and rendered him unconscious, and ultimately led to his death. So I said, in my opinion, everyone in that gym that day needs to be held accountable, from the supervisors to drill instructors overseeing the session.
Yeah.
There were serious questions that needed to be answered about what went wrong in the safety protocols and the structure of the training itself. So the big question remains, who was in charge of the oversight during the training?
Yes.
And how was such a catastrophic failure allowed to happen. If you want to read more about that, I dropped the link in the chat. Feel free to do that.
Wow,
So
I will read that. What a great article and good insights, because when you have a confirmation that this was a training exercise that just went awry, so to speak, then naturally you have to look at the protocols, the supervision, how things are supposed to have happened, where things went wrong. And even not only from a potentially criminal standpoint, because that will help to develop a better understanding of what the mens rea was, the intent or lack thereof, or the level of that, but also from a civil standpoint, because the Garcias and Delgado Garcias, I don't know how they
it's
pronounce.
Delgado Garcia.
Yeah, usually in the Hispanic families, it really depends on a variety of factors. But the Delgado Garcias, they may likely be pursuing their civil action, a future civil action, and that will help to determine whether or not there were mistakes at the police level, the recruiting level, the supervisory level, whether there was individuality of the officers observing the training exercise. So a lot of different nuances here that will impact both the a potentially criminal prosecution that could result, but in addition to that, a civil action in the future.
Yeah. I have a breaking video here from ABC News on Bryan Kohberger.
Ooh.
Let's play that. Pull it up on screen.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I want to just play this through. Let's see. What does ABC News say?
We have some breaking news here on ABC News Live Reports. I'm Alex Brachet in Washington. Right now, we are following news out of Idaho. Bryan Kohberger, accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students in 2022, has accepted a plea deal. ABC News has confirmed that he has agreed to plead guilty to all counts. ABC News Live anchor Kana Whitworth is on the phone with us. She has been following this case from the beginning. And Kana, what details can you share with us about how this deal came together?
Yeah, Alex, I mean, this is simply a stunning turn of events in a case that has gripped this entire nation. Up until today, we were looking at an August 18th trial date with Bryan Kohberger's life on the line. What we know now from families who received a letter is that Bryan Kohberger has accepted a plea deal. In part of this plea deal, the defendant will plead guilty to all counts listed in the indictment. So that is 4 counts of murder as well as a burglary count as well. He will serve 4 life sentences consecutively with no possibility of parole. And the defendant will waive all rights to appeal this conviction as well. It also sounds like they will be seeking some restitution for families. This is things like money for funeral expenses and, victims' compensation. The next thing that's happening, Alex, is there will be a change of plea hearing, and that is this Wednesday, July 2nd. And so for some, this may be some finality and some closure. For others, you have to imagine, Alex, there are so many unanswered questions in this case, and I'm sure that there's fear that those questions will remain unanswered. But here we are, after more than 2 years, the one and only suspect in the Idaho college murders case, the man who stood accused of murdering Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, and Ethan Chapin. His name is Bryan Kohberger, and he has accepted a plea deal.
I have comments to your comments.
Listen, Kana, of all the trials, it feels like we've been keeping track of over the last several weeks. This was the one that we anticipated was at least going to have some sort of resolution later on in the year at the earliest. But for our viewers that are just kind of catching up, can you walk us through what the past several months have been like with this case?
It's been tumultuous. There has been filing after filing and pushback from the defense, initially trying to delay the trial. They have maintained their client's innocence this entire time. They wanted to have the death penalty taken off the table. They tried many times unsuccessfully for that to happen. In the meantime, this has been under a gag order. So people involved in this case have not been able to speak out about it, which is why so much of this case has been shrouded in secrecy. We thought that it was going to go to trial in Moscow, and then it got moved down to Boise, and then it got pushed back yet again. And so here we are now, about a month before this trial was supposed to start, and we have learned that instead of a trial, there will be a plea deal.
Wow.
Kenna, do we know that in this plea deal, was there anything that was taken off the table? Was the death penalty taken off the table?
The death penalty is taken off the table. So exactly, in exchange for pleading guilty, the death penalty will be taken off the table. It's a pretty standard cut and dry plea deal. There weren't very many concessions, which you have to imagine there may have been families out there that wanted concessions like that.
Well, and the other thing is, because we just saw your interview earlier today with the friends of some of these victims. Wow. I don't know if you've had a chance to speak with them since this news, but for our viewers, you know, how are they hoping to remember their best friends?
You know, it's so important, after speaking with Emily Lant and Hunter Johnson, the two that were the first to arrive at that King Road home, that the world remember their friends for how they lived their lives and not for their last day, not for how they died. I had a chance to speak with Ethan Chapin's entire family as well, and their family motto is to live like Ethan. He was a beaming, bright ray of sunshine. All of these kids were really described in that manner, and that's what's the most important here, is that we remember these kids, we remember how they lived, and we don't lose sight of the families here. Maybe there's finality here, but they never get to wake up with their kids ever again.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. I remember in that interview hearing
one
of the friends talking about how they really kind of rejected this label of the Idaho 4, because you had four individuals who had, you know, different personalities and very much their own identities here, and that's something that we certainly don't want to lose. Kenna, if you don't mind sticking around, I want to bring in our legal contributor Bryan Buckmeyer, who's also
in the
with
chat.
us right now.
And Bryan, I want to hear the rest.
First off, did this deal?
I'm going to do this, everybody. Let's just finish the video, and then I know there's questions for Nan about this, and I think they're really great questions. Yeah. And we'll answer some from all of you. We really appreciate the interaction in this. I know that this so off of Karen Reed. You know, there's plenty of things that we're gonna move on here on the channel. There's still some after shows that, you know, as things come out, we're gonna still continue to talk about on the local show on Sundays. But you know, there's other things that we can start focus on. And this is really a something that I had done for almost 2 years before I learned of Karen's case. And it's so strange, because if you're just coming in the chat, the way that I started the show off. So this show wasn't even supposed to happen this way today. Nan was supposed to come in, and we were just going to do like, you know, I renamed the stream as "Who the fuck is Nan Gallagher," which was awesome. And we were supposed to come in and just get to know who she is. And this broke today, but it was funny because I read an email that she literally almost wrote me a year to the day a year ago, and she referenced the "just driving around" reference, and that's Bryan Kohberger.
Yeah.
And here we are. So let me just finish up this video, and then we'll answer some questions. Here we go.
Surprise you.
Oh, Alex, absolutely. This is shocking and surprising for a number of reasons. Now, whenever you have a death penalty case, the major issue or major concern that a defense attorney will have is trying to get that off the table. And so understanding there's a plea deal where Bryan Kohberger will not be put to death, especially in a state that has such, let's say, wide-reaching ways in which they can employ the death penalty, that makes sense. But
Mazza Media checking in and goes, "That's a wrap, plea deal, and it's over." Isn't it ironic, Mazza? I just started reintroducing the case back on my channel, and here we are. I just literally did a basic breakdown like 3 or 4 days ago.
I thought it was very good, by the way. It was a good refresher, but it was also very distinct enough for newcomers to this case, which the case will be wrapped up
on Wednesday. But I mean, because I hadn't done it so long, and I said, well, maybe some of my Karen Reed supporters on the channel would be interested in this. And anyway, but here we are. We'll play.
He's still going to die within prison. I mean, this sentence is 4 consecutive life sentence. No one lives that long, especially not in prison. So I would have thought, based on the offer that was given, he would have still have gone to trial, because it's death one way or another.
Well, and also the timing of this, Brian. I mean, is there anything to glean from that?
Yes.
We talked about that August,
Yes.
that August 18th trial date, essentially.
Yes. I have my thoughts.
Yeah, so plea deals always get their best the closer you get to trial. And there's a number of factors that go into it. If you think about it from a defense attorney's side of view, or even the defendant's point of view, they're getting nervous. They're getting worried. Whether you're innocent or guilty, or you believe yourself one way or the other, having your life in the hands of 12 people that you've never met before can be very, can shake you to your core in many ways. And for the government, they're thinking about putting on these witnesses, putting on people who are going to testify about some of the most horrific events that happened probably in this community, and putting the family through this all. And so they're thinking about sparing the family. Now, we know at least to some degree that a letter must have been sent to the families to okay this. And so the families, at least on their face until we hear otherwise, presumably were okay with this offer that Bryan Kohberger would spend the rest of his natural life.
That didn't happen. We just heard from Shannon Gray a minute before this. So they had no idea. Again, these are just people that are speculating that don't really know all the inside. But we got about another 2 minutes in this, and then we'll answer some of your questions.
In prison without having to be subjected to the photos, the testimony, and the imagery that would have come from his trial.
What do you make of his defense team's strategy in this case?
I think it made sense. This is a defense team that was a public defender office from a neighboring county facing a death penalty case. And what you do with that is you fight zealously and vigorously to save that person's life. And in some regards, and in many regards, actually, they achieved that here. Bryan Kohberger will not be put to death by the state, and instead will spend the rest of his natural life behind bars. And in a death penalty case, as I said earlier, that is in many ways
in the chat. Hi, Mimi.
And you make every
Mimi,
argument you can, not just for the trial court, but also for appeals. And I think with here, they're going to walk away saying their client accepted a deal. Their client obviously knew, or hopefully knew what they were facing, understood what they were facing, and we'll find out on July 2nd if this actually happens, because a plea doesn't happen until they actually say the words. There have been many instances where people agree to a plea deal and then ultimately reject it at the 11th hour or close to the 12th hour there. And so I think the strategy made sense. They got in many regards what they were looking for, and I think we'll see what happens on Wednesday.
All right. Our thanks to Brian. And
interesting. Here's my thoughts.
I would love to hear your thoughts.
No, I find this very interesting. We're about 2.5 weeks out from trials going to start.
Is it 2.5 weeks
Yeah,
out?
because August 16th, was it? They said the date was supposed to start. So you're, I'm sorry. No, it's about 2 months out.
About
a month and a half.
About 6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks out. I find it very interesting, the timing of this, knowing that we're closing in on trial. This is a power move from Kohberger.
Ooh, do tell.
Just to say, fuck you, you're never going to find out.
That's possible. It's possible. And the reason I would say it's possible is because, and I'm not a profiler, but there's a litany of serial killer investigative materials that have come out over the years where you will have serial killers, which is not what this was. This was not a serial killing. There's all different, like, I think if anything, it was a mass killing.
It was a mass killing.
But there's serial killer research that's come out over the years where they will, different types of profilers and psychologists will interview serial killers, and most serial killers love the taunt of it all and the adulation of it all, and the fact that they have the knowledge of where the quote bodies are buried and you want it, and we're going to dance with each other to kind of give that information to you. I think there may be an element of accuracy to what you're suggesting here. Maybe he's saying, hey, look, I took you through this whole lengthy process, but as I'm facing the death penalty and I am leaving my life in the hands of 12 jurors with the uncertainty of it all, yeah, all right, I got you this far, and now you're never going to know. I'm going to plea it up, go to jail. Fine, you got me, but you're never going to get the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah. Iceman 2.0 in the chat says, I kind of agree with Brian. BK wants to attain his control over the case and ultimately the authorities. It makes sense. I mean, I feel like it's kind of a power move. Like, fuck you, you're never gonna find out. And he just sat and probably loved this playing out the whole time. The pressure that it put on the families, the pleading, the heartache. He probably was reveling in this the whole time.
Right.
And then just got to a certain point where, okay, we're 6 weeks out from trial. They probably approached him with another plea deal, as I've heard that they've been approaching him with plea deals, and he probably just said, now's the time. Maybe this is the time to do it.
And I think as a student and a student teacher in criminality, I think he was interested in the whole process, researching what brought, what interested people in committing crimes, researching or profiling victims, picking the victims, executing a crime. Again, I think I said earlier, I think he aimed too high on this. And I don't think I'm alone. Different profilers would say, usually you start a little smaller in what your first crime is. There was news reports that he actually may have committed some prior crimes. And then seeing how the process played out from a thereafter justice standpoint, the legal process, once he was arrested, I think he knew it was only a matter of time. I think he was expecting to be arrested out in Pennsylvania. So with all of that said, now that he's reached the end of the road, I don't think we're ever going to really fully find out, but I think he was interested in all of it.
Yeah. Susie C, thanks for the 10. She says, I'm behind Nan's mention of Gary Bucato, his bestseller on serial killers and thoughts on Kohberger. It's fascinating, disturbing. He gets the brains of all of these individuals and what drives them. It's pretty scary, she said.
Yeah, he writes a book, by the way. I think it's called The New Evil. And he really delves into the mindset of
it'd be really
killers.
great to see if we can try to get him over sometime. NH Dude 6035, thank you so much for the 5. Says, as a dad of daughters, he would not be serving anything than a dirt nap. Sorry, not sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. We have someone that disagrees with us, and I'm going to pull this up, but I would love them to explain the Bryan Kohberger case to us in some minimal words here. They said, love you, but get on a case that you actually know something about.
Oh, please.
Can you just please let the chat know, please? And listen, channel member, they're a channel member here. I think that's great.
We respect that.
We respect that. But can you just please let us know your theory in the chat? I just want to know, because Bryan Kohberger today took a plea deal. He's going to plea and actually plea to this. So is this some kind of like over-pressing pressure from a cult? I just need to know all that. So if you just let us know.
I mean, why would he plea to 4 crimes that he did not commit?
Sure.
It
must be the puppet master.
Possibly, but at the same time, I don't know first of all, it's not my channel, but I respect Bryan and his channel and its members, of which I believe I'm also a member. If I'm not, I got to check my membership. But with that said, while views are respected, and certainly yours is as a member, if you're a member, and I don't know for how long, I will tell you, nobody knows this case better than Bryan. He's been with it. I have been with him from the inception of his coverage on this case, which goes back years. I wouldn't sit here and talk about this case unless I felt very passionately about the depth and breadth of his intellect and knowledge on this case. So I'd be interested to see what you think he doesn't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and thank you, Nan. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
And out of all due respect, look, yes, I did take up on the Karen Reed case. It's local. I felt that there was something here to do. I've pretty much tried to follow along. I wasn't in as much as a lot of people with all the court documents that were released towards the last 2 years. But if you just go back to the very beginning of the case with the basic evidence that we had and things that have come out, I mean, I felt all along they had this guy, his white Hyundai Elantra, in and around the area. Right. He had been seen in and around that area at least 12 to 14 times. He was stopped in and around that area once. And also, which I want to keep people reminding this too. He was detained
Yes.
when he was stopped. So you know what that means?
There was reasonable suspicion to detain him.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the detaining definition is in Idaho, but a lot of detainments that I know means that, yeah, sometimes and most of the time you're in cuffs and you're not free to go until they check you out. So I can only speculate on that, but he was detained, meaning you're not free to go until we investigate you.
That's right. He may
not
have been the subject of their investigation, but yes.
And then other things that night, leaving his apartment in Pullman, being caught multiple cameras in and out the route over to 112 King Road, circled the house multiple times before he went in for the kill, the white Honda Elantra. I'm also going to tell you this. I truly believe that there's a lot of cast information in this case. I think I'm telling you, it probably would have came out in trial. I think there's an angle to that Bluetooth speaker. There's possibility that he touched the Wi-Fi. I know that he was in airplane mode.
Yeah.
And I know it was very strange that he turned his phone off at certain times.
But where it turned back on was also interesting to me. And I know to you previously, where it would be off or on airplane mode, and then he would be miles and miles away on a circumuous route.
All of a sudden, it just came back on and started touching everything again.
I'm sorry to interrupt you because I know you know these because you've educated me over the years on this. The fact that he went back to the crime scene at like in the 9 o'clock hour that morning. And I have always suspected that it was to either see if he could go back and get the knife sheath that he was stupid enough to drop, or to investigate from pure curiosity. Like, wait, why is this not hitting the news wire yet? Like 4 people were just slain. Let me go back and see if there's caution tape and, police circling. So there's so many different facts that led the police his direction. And locally speaking, I know that people in the Moscow and Washington areas, University of Washington areas as well, they were like, this is taking so long to find a suspect. In retrospect, it wasn't that long, Bryan, and I know you likely agree with this. It wasn't that long where, from the date of the crime, which was mid-November, to the actual arrest, which was right around New Year's. I mean, to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together, plus to get feedback on the DNA, et cetera, they moved in pretty quickly. We have this McDonaldization of criminal prosecution nowadays where we expect people to be arrested and prosecuted immediately. Sometimes an investigation takes a little time. This wasn't that long, but all of these facts together made this case, aside from the pure tragedy of it, it made this case so interesting to me. And I know to you,
super interesting
to you to cover it. Your coverage has been exceptional, even if you diverted to the Karen Reed case, which, should have been done, because the Bryan Kohberger case was a little bit on a snooze alert for me for a couple of years here. Was just putting off this trial. Ann Taylor repeatedly saying, I need more time, I need more discovery, or complaining about DNA and how it was procured and whether law enforcement, by virtue of the FBI, should have gone in and been able to use one of the third-party DNA labs to do its investigative
genealogy.
IgG, right?
IgG.
I'm on cold meds, folks. But all of the different intricacies involved here made this such an interesting story. And I'm here till the end. I definitely want to see how it plays out, and I hope he talks one day.
Yeah, I actually went out in with the new documents that hit. I went out and actually did a Google Earth map. Oof. And I went over this on a live just a couple of maybe weeks or months ago, and I mapped out all of the cameras that he was caught at. And one of them that was very interesting to me was this Winco Foods. And I was always trying to figure out, how did he initially connect with these students? Like, what would be the connection there? and there was some speculation that he was in and around this Winco Foods. It's in one of the legal documents, and I have a note. It says Winco Foods, 1700 Pullman Road, Moscow, ID, Winco financial records from Bryan Kohberger, and Winco financial records for video surveillance of Dylan Mortensen, Bethany Funk, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Knodel, Ethan Chapin, and Madison Mogan. Possible first contact. My thought was, knowing that that is a big area of where students buy food in bulk, because it's like a bulk buying, like a Costco or something like that.
Your dorms.
I always wondered if he was there and saw one of them or a group of them and got fixated on them and started to follow them. I think you're going to find, if this ever comes out, it's going to be something like that. I mean, he stalked them.
Yeah, I know they
clearly stalked them.
I know that there was like original buzz that perhaps he had been transfixed on Maddie Mogan, and that there was some type of restaurant, something, the Mad Greek, or
they worked there.
Some restaurant where I think Maddie and Xana worked at, that served vegetarian dishes. That he, by all accounts, was vegetarian as of the time the crimes were committed, and maybe there was a connection there. This type of fixation on victims, the selection of them, which we know through investigation, was something that he was researching, whether for his degree, for his PhD in criminality, or whatever the PhD was officially called at the school, or by his own morbid curiosity to really figure out what makes criminals tick and what makes them select their victims. These are really interesting aspects to this case, where I know profilers are going to want to ask that. Beyond the what really happened that night, there's going to be people like Gary Brucato and others, and Catherine Ramslin, who are going to want to try to understand what led him to make certain decisions, and what led him to get 2.5 years post-crime to finally apparently roll over at the 11th hour. That's the type of stuff that's very interesting. And one other point, Brian, which is, I have an interest, and I don't know if others who are viewers had an interest in Ted Bundy and his crimes, and, with the way his matter played out.
He was Googling Ted Bundy. I mean, he was very
was he?
Oh, yeah. There's been Google searches now that have come out that he was very interested in Ted Bundy, which makes sense.
It does. That tracks. And now, with Ted Bundy, after he was convicted, you were at a point with him as he was facing his death penalty dates, his execution date. He would kind of play with the state and say, I have information, and come talk to me, and pull it back. It's that taunting I'm talking about, which I find very fascinating in a morbid way. Don't judge me, but I'm interested in the psychology of that as someone who devours true crime. But ultimately, the rope ran out for him, and the state wasn't going to have anything to do with it. And you may see some flavor of that in how Kohberger plays out in the coming weeks.
Let's just do a little bit longer here. I know Nan's feeling a little under the weather. I don't want to keep her here too much longer, but Missy says, Missy says, I'm still shocked that he was able to pull this off by himself. Do you think there was any accomplices? And we talked about this earlier. I don't know when you came into the live. I don't. And the reason I don't believe that is, we're now in 2025. This happened in November of 22. We know the multiple agencies that have investigated this. I mean, the FBI was all over this immediately. I think personally, they would have found something out by now. Someone would have cracked, or some really heavy information would have came out, and they would have had another suspect in all of this. And if there was, if I was Kohberger, and let's just say I knew I did this, why would you take this all on yourself at this point? You would say X, Y, and Z was in on this, and you need to start looking at them as well too. I mean, that's just my opinion, but
possibly.
I don't think that he would just go down.
Yeah, I never thought others were involved, but there is a part of me that could be convinced that if there was one or more additional accomplices involved, that maybe he wouldn't want to identify them.
Sure, because it would make him essentially guilty for it. But Lauren DC says, I think there was some unidentified DNA too, and I'm curious about that. Yeah, so there was, and there was a couple
Yeah.
of unnamed profiles, but we go back to Karen Reed's case, okay? What did we
Yeah.
find in that when they took DNA swabs? There were profiles that were unidentified. Now, I know a lot of people speculate
Yeah.
because DNA was not taken of the people inside 34 Fairview that it could possibly be their DNA. I know that was the big
Right.
speculation, but we really don't know. And you got to think of this. This is a college house with multiple
Yes.
people running through it. And the overall point is this: Bryan Kohberger's DNA was found at that scene. And guess what? He's taking a plea deal. So he did this crime.
Agreed. And
did
it's
this
not,
crime.
oh, he pled, or, I'm speaking futuristically. It's not going to be he pled to this crime. When a criminal defendant pleads to a crime or 4 crimes, it's really 5 crimes in this instance, 4
'Cause of
counts of
burglary.
murder plus
Yeah.
burglary, which I find interesting that he'd be pleading to that as well. He really doesn't need to. The 4 murder charges are enough. But with all of that said, he will be guilty. He committed the crimes. That's what he will have to admit to in open court. I also found it interesting that the reporting on ABC called it a change of plea hearing.
Can you explain that?
Well, yes. I mean, it's really not a change of plea because he pled to no plea, from what your chat was kind of reminding me of. So he didn't plead. So now he's going to be entering a guilty plea as to the 5 counts. It's just, I guess it's putting form over substance, Brian, but the way I look at it, it's like, it's really not a change of your plea. You're now entering a plea of guilty. So it'd be interesting to see if he's going to enter those pleas or if they'll allow his lawyer to enter them on his behalf. Honestly, if I were the students at University of Idaho, if I were the parents of the victims, I would really be up in arms if it's not Bryan entering these pleas himself.
Yeah.
And I think that should be legislation that's pushed in the future, just as they recently changed their death penalty legislation as well. I think criminal defendants should be forced to enter pleas on their own behalf and not through an attorney. And I say that as an attorney of 25 years. I don't think I should be entering a plea for my client. If you did the crime, admit it and do the time.
Yeah, I agree. Let's just do a couple more minutes here. I don't want to keep Nan too much longer. She's not feeling too well.
Everyone's taking mercy on me.
I just want to thank the 3,000 people watching us on X right now. So if you haven't followed my account, make sure to please follow my account. Nan Gallagher is a pretty regular guest here on the channel. So if you like her commentary today and you like my commentary, of course, please subscribe or follow. It's follow on X. So hit that follow button. And you can also, excuse me, if you're watching on X, find me at home base. Just look up LTL Media on YouTube and you can come over and subscribe to my channel to get all my notifications of content. And of course, I'm going to be following this, kind of the fallout of all of this over the next couple of weeks. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of information to come out. And I was literally gearing up. I was saying to Nan, I'm gearing up to get back into trial. And here we are with the plea deal. So that as well. And then we have 500 people watching on YouTube right now. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, smash the like button. And a couple people over on Facebook, my Facebook friends. Thank you so much. Real quick. Let's see. So I got a question. Could the prosecution judge say they'll accept his plea if he comes clean on everything?
No. That's a great question. And in a perfect world, that would be wonderful. But the way it works is to plead guilty to a crime, Brian, the prosecutor or the defense attorney will have to just lay out a factual predicate. The bare bones of the case. He was in the vicinity. He had the means, motive, and opportunity. He did X, Y, or Z to execute these crimes and quite literally to execute these victims. But there will never be, and I've never even heard of that, with all due respect to your great question, there will never be a full revelation of what has happened or a requirement that he indeed reveal all. If anything, what could have been negotiated up until this point over the last few weeks could have been some discussions between the prosecution and the defense team where they said, show us more. We're willing to take more things off of the table to convict you with, or will lighten the load, or will give you more of a favorable recommendation at sentencing if you do tell all. But it does appear from reporting, which I got literally driving to your beautiful studio, that that is not the case.
Yeah.
So it won't happen.
Yeah. I mean, we got a lot to watch over the next couple weeks. Again, on Wednesday, I am going to stream, if there is a live stream, and I'm pretty sure there will be. We'll live stream that plea, the plea deal in live court. So I'm sure that pretty much is going to happen. I do have Wednesday off, so I'll be able to do that. I'll keep an eye on the docket and any of the the rumors that are swirling of when this is going to happen, but on what time on Wednesday. So I will go live with that so we can watch over. And then, of course, we'll keep an eye on this over the next couple of weeks. There's going to be a lot of fallout. The Gonzalez are going to be very vocal about this. I want to hear what they have to say in any type of interview or statement. And we never know. Maybe Bryan Kohberger's family starts speaking up for the first time.
Yeah.
And maybe, like you said, to your credit, Nan, maybe witnesses now are more apt to speak out because they feel safe, because this demon is finally going to be put behind bars and will not be able to come out and hurt anybody ever again.
Oh, completely agree with you. And I know once the plea, it's really 5 pleas, but once they're entered, I know that Gonsalves is, they're good. It's going to be like they're off to the races.
Yeah. Debbie has a question is asking Nan, do you will they do impact statements on Wednesday or at some time?
Oh, that's a great question, Debbie.
Or at sentencing. I'm sorry.
At sentencing. Yes. Yeah. I actually don't see your chat right now, but yes, they will do victim impact statements, and that will be great. But what you will not see is sentencing at this change of plea hearing. I'd be shocked if that happens.
Yeah.
If that happens, Bryan, reach out to me. I'll be sick in a hotel room somewhere up here. Maybe I can hop on with you.
Is that, well, I mean, look, in Karen's case, they moved forward. They just said, let's just get it over with. And it was the DUI.
That's unusual.
Sure.
That happened in her case.
How long does it usually take is it about 30 days?
It's usually about 30 days. However, in a death penalty case, it's usually longer. Now, part of this plea is removal of the death penalty off the table. So if I were to forecast, it's usually about 30 to 45 days. It also factors in the judge's availability and that of the staff. But what happens is there needs to be sentencing guidelines that are considered and sentencing submissions that are submitted by both sides, where both sides make arguments and go through forms with fields that are checked off for the judge to consider for the time of sentencing. There are also different victim impact statements that are submitted in writing to the court for the court to consider. I'm forecasting he would not be sentenced if he enters a plea, or his attorney begrudgingly enters a plea on his behalf this Wednesday. So here we are. That'd be the beginning of July. I would imagine he'll be sentenced probably by the middle of September. If I'm right, I'll buy you a Coke, or you buy me or cold medicine.
Yeah, and if she's wrong, you can tweet at her and go, "You were wrong.
You were wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. How dare you?" 2
more and we'll finish up here. Susie says, Nan is a keeper. She's amazing co-host on Monday nights. We love her and feel fortunate to see her on your channel. Feel better, love. Thank you so much. And we'll end with this. Nan, will he be placed in isolation or general pop? I'm going to answer this one with you.
Go for it.
He's very high profile. So I'm sure he's going to be under some type of protection, if not initially when he gets into prison, but probably forever. He's going to be so isolated that they're not going to want anybody to get their hands on him. But listen, this is prison and people find their ways.
Oh, yeah. I will mention, first of all, I think you're 100% right, Bryan. And also on this point, as a high profile defendant who is going to be convicted, I think they'll keep him isolated, but when there's a will, there's a way. And I've learned a lot devouring true crime. And I know when there are other prisoners who want to execute justice, I mean, there's so many different ways they do it. I think his time is limited.
And being so high profile. I mean, look at Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yes.
The same thing. He was so high profile, but someone eventually ended up getting to him and I think killed him with a broomstick.
Yeah, something like that.
And they just wanted the adulation and the accolades from doing that.
Yeah.
So those things do happen.
And I would equate, even though they were all of the age of majority, Brian, I would equate them to children.
They're still kids.
And because of that, those types of aggressors who murder children, they face a higher level of risk when they're in incarceration.
I agree.
And he deserves everything that's coming to him. That's, that's my opinion.
Oh, yeah. He deserves everything that's coming to him. So anyway, let's see. Not Haley checking and says Nan is the best. Thank you, Jason. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Jason.
I appreciate it. All right, Nan. Let's shut down the mothership tonight. I want to appreciate you coming up here in the studio. This is not the way that this interview, but I think it was great.
I do too.
It was great.
I hope I don't give you a cold, Brian, but it's great here. It was great to be here, and I am going to keep coming back. So I love when the best laid plans just never turn out that way.
It was so weird how this all happened because this was not the show we had scheduled tonight. We were just going to hang out for like 2 hours and shoot the shit and learn about, Nan's career in law. And we're going to do that show sometime, but this was like breaking news. We had to do this.
This is absolutely better. And honestly, I'm happy that as much as people are looking forward to hearing all that transpired with the Idaho 4 case, and you may never, this is a good way to just wrap this up and,
let these families move on.
Yeah.
Let these families try to move on. Yeah. As hard as it's going to really be. Let's just give them some peace and time now. And it's going to be very frustrating for a while. Again, I'm going to continue to report on this. We'll follow over the next couple of weeks and see what happens here. Again, I want to thank my guest again, attorney Nan Gallagher. Thank you for jumping up. And I want to thank the 3,200 people that are watching us on X right now. We have about close to 450 people on YouTube, and then my friends over on Facebook. Thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, we're trying to get this channel to 50,000 subscribers. Come over, 3,200 of you on X if you're not over here, and subscribe to LTL Media. You can look me up, LTL Media, and I also drop the link in the chat. So that's going to end our discussion tonight. Again, thank you all for being here. My name is Brian. This is LTL Media. Again, I want to thank my guest, Nan Gallagher, for popping in. And we're going to head out, and I will be back live on Wednesday. If there's a live hearing in the Bryan Kohberger plea deal, you bet I will be streaming that. Come over and check it out, and I'll keep everybody up to date. I'm going to hit the outro. Everybody have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye.